All right. Welcome to episode 232 of the Artcasters. And as usual, we'll just kind of introduce ourselves and tell you guys where to find our work. This is a show where we talk about like the ins and outs of cartooning, illustration, graphic design, you name it. If it's creative, we pretty much talk about it. So you're on my channel. You know where to find me. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit that bell to get notifications when we're about to go live. And if you're so inclined, check out my portfolio at joshuakemble.com. And you can see a really brief snippet of my graphic novel about faith and mental illness. It's a memoir that I'm pitching right now. So because I'm pitching it, like most of the pages are pulled, but there's still a little preview at quarterlystories.com. So that's pretty much what I got going. Scott, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at circworks.com. I'm also Circworks on YouTube, and it's I've got a project on design cuts right now, the Hero Design Studio. I haven't checked today, so hopefully it's still on the front page. It was kind of going down a little bit, so hopefully it's still on the front page. But anyways, Hero Design Studio on design cuts, and it's basically just a product that helps you kind of has some templates for creating superheroes and stuff like that for a number of programs. One of them is for Procreate, which we'll be talking about with our guest. So
I love it. And actually, if it's not on the front page, come on, guys, Artcasters followers, make it get on the front page. Go check it out. All right, so and then we are joined by Paul Pate, who we actually know through Jim Lujan, and Paul's going to be our guest. He's going to talk about Procreate and kind of creating comics on there. Paul, where can everybody check out your work?
Yeah, paulpate.com. There you can, I've done some graphic novels and some animation, and you can find all that there. Keep up with my latest little artwork and, pieces, the most up-to-date stuff on Instagram. I think there's a link there for my website, but and I'm Pate_Paul on Instagram, I think. So.
Love it.
But
That's great. So. And so you're among the insane people who not only do the tedious work of cartooning like comics, but go a step further and also animate.
Which that's for the truly insane.
It's one of those things like I've delved in animation just a little bit because of Corey. Like Corey kind of talked me into it. Jim kind of pushed me into it a little bit, but it's like mild, like barely, using After Effects to make something move for a second. But like doing full out animation, I always try to avoid because I got the comic bug, and I just fear that. I fear that moment of seeing it move and going like, I have to do this.
Oh yeah.
I know so many animators, so
right.
But so yes, this is about procreation. So I'm fascinated to hear about kind of the way that Procreate works for comics. Like what is it about Procreate that kind of appeals? Maybe we can start there. Like, why Procreate? Like, what's a
well, I don't. First of all, this is just. I'm not a Procreate expert. I'm not a teacher. Like Scott on Making Comics 101. Put a plug there for you. That'll be. You can pay me later. I'm not
everyone. Then I gotta pay in the chat. If I had to pay every time Frank promoted me, I'd be a very poor man.
I'm just using it. For me, I'm not going to be able to teach or tutorial anybody on this, but I'm using it for the comic that I'm working on now. I've used it for a few projects in the past, and there's other things like Clip Studio Paint or Clip Studio that that work great. In fact, probably way better than Procreate, but I just don't have it. Procreate on the iPad is what I have to draw on. I've gotten familiar with it. It works for me. So that's the appeal for me. The appeal also is just doing it on my iPad. I don't have all the art supplies, you know. I have my iPad, and it's the size of it is good. It's kind of like my sketch pad.
Yeah.
Here, you know, it's an iPad Pro. It's a pretty good size, but it's like carrying a book around or something.
Mhm.
A laptop. So like this weekend, I won't be home, but I'll take it with me, and I'll be able to, you know, continue my work even though I'm away from the studio. So,
Yeah.
And just not having all the art supplies because I'm a mess.
Yeah. So Paul, I mean, I've got mine here too.
Oh, okay, great.
And so, you know, I've back when there was a point where my son was going to school and I was taking him there, and I kind of had to wait for him to take his classes.
Yeah.
It was a ways away.
Right.
So I would just bring my iPad with me to the coffee shop, and I liked it, but for some reason I've always had trouble coming from Clip Studio Paint on the desktop. I don't have it for mobile because it's like a subscription, another subscription.
Okay, right.
But I found the brushes that they just and I think I'm in the minority. I know Corey is kind of with me, but I've heard so many people, and even just love Procreate, and they seem to be able to do the coolest stuff on it. It just, for me, I was having trouble getting the brushes to work the way I wanted.
Yeah,
so I got to play around with those, and like
I think that's Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in the product I just released, I created some brushes, but they were more like stamp brushes. So I got to play around with the settings. I'm sure I can get the settings for the brushes to work the way I want. I just haven't played around with them long enough.
Right. Yeah. Let me grab something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it is cool to. I mean, the iPad is. I mean, it is kind of almost like a regular sketch pad size, like Paul said, and you know, it's just nice because you know, it's all in one thing.
Do you guys know Lonnie Millsap?
Yeah.
Josh does.
Yeah. We were talking one time. This is Lonnie's favorite pen, or you know, the Flair felt tip marker. It's mine as well.
Nice.
And I remember talking Lonnie into getting the iPad, and he's like, "Well, I need this pen." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love this pen. God, I can't get on the camera. I love this pen, the way it works on my, you know, paper.
What brand is that then?
It's the Flair. Flair.
Oh, Flair. Okay.
Well, no, this one's Papermate Flair. See if I can. You know, it's just that like felt tip thing, right? And so Lonnie was like, you know, he messed around with my iPad, and he's like, "This is really awesome, but I'm not gonna be able to use this unless I can get it to you know, act like this."
Oh, I see it now. Yeah, those pens. I know exactly those pens. I haven't seen them in a while, but I used to love those pens.
Yeah.
I can tell by the little white end on the cap, and I see it now.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so then Lonnie was kind of skeptical, but I do believe that he got himself an iPad.
Oh yeah.
And he did. And then I think he developed that pen on there, you know, by taking another pen and copying it and just tweaking it until he got it just right, the way he wanted it, and then now he's drawing on an iPad. So I liked, you know, the studio pen on there, and the technical pen are what I like. I like the pencil. I mean, I love it. I can't. Oh, another great appeal for me is, I think this is the biggest thing for me, is being able to undo.
Yeah.
You know? I do it all the time, even when I'm just penciling. And since I do my own inks, right, my pencils are really, really rough, right? Yeah. And so, but with the pencil, I can take, you know, I drew this guy's head, but it's way too big, and I need to move it over just a little bit. And so I just use the little select tool and move things around. Yeah. And if I was using an eraser, you know, that would just take me so much longer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
so,
Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
no, so anyway, I'm grateful every day that I have this thing.
Yeah.
So I was. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking all over each other.
I know.
So I don't do a lot of comic stuff on the iPad, but I am moving more towards the penciling part on Clip Studio on the desktop, and I do love the ability to like resize and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I always when I first when I was doing a comic for the 100 Days of Making Comics, and so I pencil it all digitally, but I inked it traditionally. And because to me, one thing I notice a lot of people, like you just said, is the undo, or just like I notice a lot of people when they lay down their ink lines digitally, that they have to do it like 2 or 3 times before they get it the way they want. And I just know for me, if I'm laying down ink on a page, it's like it's got to be perfect that first time. So it seemed like I could ink faster traditionally, but then I actually started doing some of the inking digitally, and I really like it in Clip Studio. So I don't know, that's tough.
Yeah, I've got this studio pen on my Procreate it's the standard studio pen, and it smooths your line for you, you know. And at first I was really irritated by it because I'm like, and I don't know the settings in order to tweak that, but now it's what I use standard. I mean, I think it's definitely like a thing that you need to get used to,
Yeah.
So
and I use a Wacom all the time, like at my day job and stuff, but it's like when I'm working on cartooning, it's like especially my own stuff, like I still haven't ditched traditional inks, but the downside of that is, I mean, I can kind of show a little snippet of the downside, which is this giant table like right behind me, and just massive amounts of tools and dropping tools, and I relate to what you're talking about because to me I'm like one of the sloppiest cartoonists I know, in the sense of like order out of chaos. So it's like I've never had like a clean studio. I'm always the guy who's like, where's my, like, even when I paint in art school and stuff, it's just like my oil paints are everywhere. The white in here in this shoebox. So it's to me that's a massive appeal to it. Also less clutter, like, because like you illustrate for a while. Like I finished a graphic novel a while ago that was all hand inked, and it's like I just have this stack of like stuff in like a flat file that's like, where's that going to go?
I know, right?
I mean, hopefully people, your comic book will become a success and you can sell those original pages. I mean, there definitely are benefits to doing traditional stuff. That's why I'm kind of like, and the more I start doing digitally, I'm kind of, as much as I'm liking it, I'm afraid I'm going to get so far away from traditional that I just don't bother with it anymore, and that's going to be a sad day, because there is a lot to love about working traditionally.
So. Yeah. I mean, digital is not exactly the same, So,
but for freelance, especially, like, I have like 15 years of freelance stuff that was done traditionally, and like I said, I
keep all of it is impractical.
There's piles of crap that like no one's gonna want. Like even if like some stuff took off that are just like like that were cut and pasted together and stuff. So to me, like the lack of clutter in that is pretty good as an appeal. And I've noticed like all the members of the LANCS, like it was like this one year where it was like they just flipped from like.
It was when I convinced Lonnie to get an iPad.
I think it was at that time, but it is interesting that
I take credit for that.
Yeah, a whole ton of cartoonists in that circle just went straight to the iPad Pro, and like, so I have to hear more about it because I probably see that And, and this is cartoonists across the gamut, like all kinds of styles. So
yeah. I mean, I guess I've been like a crusader on this thing a little bit, and I feel kind of bad because I think one of the great things about cartooning is that, or comics or anything, is it's really accessible to anybody. But these daggone things are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. I don't want to make anybody feel bad, like if you can't afford one. I mean, that's why I say I'm grateful every day that I have this thing, and if it craps out, I'm gonna be depressed.
That's my biggest fear, because Apple doesn't have a very good track record as far as making their things last before they kind of their actual software and everything becomes obsolete and their operating system.
I mean, I've had this one for a few years, and in fact, I bought one for my daughter recently. The price was way down, so I'm I didn't get her the Pro. I got her just the iPad, and got her Procreate and everything, and so
that is something that we should mention, that the newer regular iPads do have Apple Pencil support, and you can run Procreate on it. So, and they're quite a bit less expensive than the iPad Pro, because I kind of went. That's what almost sold me on getting an iPad, when I found out that I could just get a regular iPad and then do all that stuff, and then. But then I start looking. Oh, well, maybe I do need the Pro, and then maybe I do need the large Pro. Oh, maybe I need the extra memory. And by the time I was done, I'm like, what am I doing? I hope this thing lasts. So
yeah. I mean, mine's lasted for a few years, So it's been for me, it was way worth it.
Yeah,
but actually, the origin of my journey to buying this thing was I'm drawing on my computer with a Wacom tablet, like most people do. And that took me a while, by the way, too. Yeah. I was real leery about doing that, where I'm drawing down here on the table, and what I'm seeing is up on the screen. That was weird for me.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, I did that for a long time. I've got my where is it? I've got my Intuos here, but I don't use it. It's on my other computer here. But because I got the Cintiq, but I think it helps if you start off on the Intuos, because it's easier for me to switch back. Like I can still, even though now I'm drawing on the Cintiq, I can easily switch back to the Intuos, and it's like, and I can work it just as well. And there's not like that disconnect like I thought, but I don't know. So, but it's nice if you're used to drawing on the Cintiq and you want to switch to an Intuos.
That seems like it'd be problematic. It was. I was really skeptical about moving to the Intuos because of just looking at the screen and then not looking at my pencil. But when I finally did that, and it was cool and everything, but then I started seeing people using the Cintiq. Well, I mean, people had been using it for forever, but I mean, I just started noticing it, and I was ready to buy a Cintiq.
Yeah.
When I was ready to do it, but then I figured out that. Well, I didn't figure out, but I just started looking at the iPad Pro. And the thing that the appeal there for me was, and I still don't know if you can do this Cintiq, but I can take the iPad Pro with me. Is the Cintiq tethered to your computer?
Mine is, but Cintiq just introduced, and they used to have the Cintiq Companion. I think they still do, but they just introduced the Wacom One, which is a tablet that you can take with you, and it's pretty reasonably priced. I think it's like $200 or $300 compared to what iPad is. So
so you could take it, draw stuff on it.
But the Cintiq, you still need. I think even with the Wacom One, I think it still needs to be plugged into a laptop. I don't think it works on its own. I could be wrong. I might be wrong, but But they do have other options. Wacom does make a number of different options, and I know that the Wacom One is like the newest portable thing that they have, and it's pretty because Cintiqs are super expensive. I got mine used, so I paid about half the price. And the one thing I will say about Cintiqs is that they hold their value, and maybe not hold their value. Maybe not hold their value because, like I said, I got one for half price because it was older. But they last. They last a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, about durability, I think this thing will last fine, this iPad. It's just a matter of the software, but for drawing, if it gets to a point where I don't want to get on the internet anymore and just use it strictly for drawing, I think it'll work fine. So.
Yeah, I've also heard that the touch sensitivity on the iPad is like monuments better, but I don't know if that's true. Like, do you find that like it's more responsive or more like drawing than when you were working on a Wacom? Or I always called it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. It's me too. Yeah, right. It's a
Wacom, whatever.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I don't know for sure, but I've never had any trouble with either one. I guess they both work for me well. So, I think my tablet pen maybe they're different for sure, but yeah, the iPad, I feel like the touch sensitivity and everything is real. It's great. Yeah. It works.
Yeah. That I can definitely vouch for. Yeah.
So Procreate, is that a program that you have to purchase?
Yeah, I think it's like $10.
Okay.
Yeah. So
is it like a subscription based kind of purchase?
No, straight up $10.
Oh wow.
And in fact, $10. I bought my daughter an iPad. I bought my daughter an iPad because my daughter, she's 9, and it was funny. I bought it for her right when this whole quarantine started, because I'm like, if we're gonna be stuck home with this kid, she produces paper, like junk. I mean, not junk to her; it's artwork, But I mean, she just is prolific. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm like, I can't deal with all this. All these pictures that she's drawing all the time. So I'm like, I'm going to, bite the bullet here and buy her this iPad. And she loves to like paint and, any kind of, just everything. She's a mess. So, but the reason I brought it up was because I bought her that iPad. But I had already purchased Procreate. So I was able to put it on her iPad for free because the App Store was under my name.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So I didn't have to buy it twice. Wow. It was a whole long story, but I just really wanted to talk about it.
But I mean, that's an advantage because you kind of can't do that with some Adobe software for sure. Like beyond like 2 computers or whatever, it like flips out and crashes or open it if you try anything other than that.
Right. Yeah. So, Procreate is $10, and I mean, you get all these brushes and all, like I said, for making comics, I think Clip Studio is fantastic. I would use that, but this is just a real, also a good option, I guess. So
okay, and then file formats. This is always a question for me as somebody who hasn't really messed with iPad art or art on programs that aren't Adobe programs.
Right.
So file format wise, like what are the file formats that, like, let's say you make something in Procreate, like
you can export it. So you draw your picture and then you can export it into a JPEG, or you can export it into a Photoshop file.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. So, or PNG, or those are all the ones that I've used. But
nice, and
pretty much anything.
And will the files layered too? Like
yeah. So what I was going to tell you was at some point I could show you. So with this comic, I'm using the iPad Pro Procreate to pencil it and to ink it. And also, like, to write it, I just write it right in Procreate, right? Like, I kind of have an outline. I actually have my Freytag's triangle or whatever that is, that Freytag's pyramid. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but for writing, it's got like the intro, the second act, and the climax, you know. I did that outline in Procreate. Like, I just sketched it all out, the plot of my story. And then every page I just use the pencils and kind of, you know, do it in the blue. And then I do the lettering and writing in red on a different layer. Okay. So I make the word bubbles and everything in red on a different layer, right? So, and then I create another. So I've got blue pencils. I got red lettering. And they're real in pencil. They're just real rough. And I make another layer that I do the inks on. And then I export that into a Photoshop file and just download it onto my computer because I'm going to use Photoshop to color it.
And you were explaining why you're choosing to use Photoshop to color it instead of coloring in Procreate.
The reason I'm doing that is because I want to use the traditional, like, comic book type coloring method of, you know, they're the more of a solid color for a field. You know what I mean? Just like if you got a picture, a circle for a head, I just want to fill that head in with one solid color. I'm not going to have a whole lot of, you know, shading or gradients or any, you know, a whole lot of that.
Yeah, for like color and cell shading, like for me, that's just my go-to is Photoshop for that kind of thing.
Right.
Dirty, like you get it done, and it's not, you know, they have great, really quick selection tools and stuff. So
right, and so the bad thing about Procreate is, to me, and maybe somebody knows a better way to do this, but the paint bucket tool is weird on Procreate, and so you have to take like the colors up in the right-hand corner, and you just have to drag it to the spot where you want to fill. Okay, so every time you want to fill a field, you got to go up to the right-hand corner and drag it down to that field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've found it's just annoying me really bad. And so on Photoshop, you just have to click there, you know, or touch it. You know what I mean? Right? With the paint bucket tool. Well, and it's quite a bit of time, you know, that little dragging. So, and then there's some other things about the Procreate paint bucket where if you draw some, you know, it doesn't do the all layers thing the way that you can do in Photoshop. You can turn all layers on and off. You know, it's real clunky in Procreate. So in any case, the paint bucket tool is really why I'm not coloring it in Procreate. And so I'm taking the time to export it, put it on my computer, and use Photoshop to color it. Got it. But yeah, that's I think that covers it.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm kind of the same where I switch back and forth for a number of different programs. I'm at the point right now where I'm doing my penciling and my inking digitally in Clip Studio, but if I'm going to color that thing, I always bring it into Photoshop, even though Clip Studio now has some powerful, you know, but I'm just so used to coloring in Photoshop. Right. Even if a lot of times if I'm illustrating, if I want more of a vector look and I'm illustrating in, you know, Illustrator for the line works, sometimes I'll bring that into Photoshop too and color in there. So,
right. Yeah, you know, this is interesting. This whole conversation too is parallel of what are your art materials? Well, you know what I mean? They're now I use Procreate and I use Photoshop, and it's kind of sad, but it's the, you know, it's the new normal. So. Yeah.
Well, there was one thing that I've heard about Procreate, and maybe you're familiar with this, or you can speak to it. But from what I understand, that when you resize in Procreate, you lose quality. Even if you're going smaller, typically as a raster program, if you go smaller, it's still, you can go smaller, but you can't go bigger. But I've heard that each time you resize that, no matter if it's smaller or bigger, you do lose some quality in Procreate.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard.
I've never experienced that.
Okay.
But I don't think I would notice that much.
Okay.
At this point, with the work that I've done on it.
So Procreate, when you draw, it's gonna be in like raster, right? It's not like a vector program, right? Or like the line is in vector. So the question that always comes up for me with maybe Scott, you can talk Clip Studio on this too, but it's like, so how do you do they also have like an anti-alias and an alias option, so you don't have like blurring on the edge of your line? So when you're doing that flat color fill, you don't end up with that like gap of color, or have to like expand. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, like I said, I don't even know how to change the settings on that silly paint bucket tool in Procreate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed. What I've noticed is like, it feels really well, but if I wanted to make it a little bit, if I wanted to change the anti-aliasing or, the different settings on there of how well it, because there's also the tolerance, I think, that you can change. I don't even know how to change those things on Procreate, on the paint bucket. So the paint bucket is what Procreate, to me, I don't know why they don't just make a paint bucket tool like Photoshop does, because I've read online and a lot of people have the same complaint that I have about it. But
I was doing a demo on the product I just created, and one of the people in the chat was asking me, because I wasn't using the paint bucket tool to do this comic character that I created. I was using
Murder Hornet Man.
Lasso. What's that?
Murder Hornet Man.
Oh yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
So I did I was using just the lasso, because on the Cintiq it's really easy to control the lasso. If you're working on an Intuos or especially with the mouse, it's a little harder. But in the Cintiq, I can pretty much control that. And to me, the problem with and I used to use the paint bucket tool all the time, but I got so used to good at the lasso that I could go under the line, drawing a layer behind it. And I could draw the shape and do all my flatting like that, and then I could select it after the fact. But the problem with a couple problems with the paint bucket tool is that, like Josh says, you have to go in with your aliasing or whatever, and then you usually have to expand it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you have to remember after you select it, you have to remember to go on another layer, and you're constantly forgetting, and then you're overwriting. So
I've done. Yep, I've gone down that road.
I always make extra layers just. I have a really hard time. I don't have a very steady hand. I have a hard time tracing. Under my own line. Practice, but the Cintiq helps a lot with that. I noticed.
Oh, really?
I could not do that before as good with the like an Intuos, but with the Cintiq, just because it's pretty much, it's almost like you're drawing on right on the thing. So
it's
easier to draw that shape.
Is there a magic wand in that as well? Because that's like my go-to when it comes to like coloring clotheslines. Like in Photoshop, I use magic wand, and then I have a shortcut set that expands my. So I'll hit like F5. It like expands my selection by like
a little bit,
just a little bit, so it traps automatically under the line, and then it's like I have perfect flats underneath. I learned that from a buddy of mine who used to color for Bongo all the time, and he was like showing me all their little tricks. But that's one of them where it's like,
I've seen that, and now I get it why it would be so useful. So I got to learn how to do that.
But I'm wondering if do they have a magic wand in Procreate?
I would assume they have to have something like that.
Yeah, they do. But there's a selection tool that you can set to automatic, and it selects the field where you. But I don't know how to make it expand like that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know either. What I usually used to do is, like, at least in Photoshop, is that with Magic Wand you expand it just a little bit and then you just fill, because there's key fill.
Yeah, and you can do the same thing in Procreate, but like I said, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and also,
that little.
It's not going to be as fast as like the paint bucket, you know. So it just
yeah. So in any case,
that's cool.
The colors, it can work great on Procreate as well. Like they've got I like the gouache paintbrush. That look, you know, that old fashioned kind of. I can't think of an illustrator right now, but you know, those old fashioned, like you know, 50s kind of drawings that you might see in old magazines and stuff. With that gouache paint, that looks cool. You know, I really love that. I think that's cool, but that's just not what I'm.
You don't have to physically mix the gouache to where you get it to that like perfect milk like substance.
Yeah, right.
You have to deal with trying to lay a flat of gouache, like ugh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you could, you know, it works pretty freaking good on this iPad. You know.
Oh, I want to try. I'm so curious. Yeah. I love gouache, like from art school, but I'm like I always think of the physical gouache and it freaks me out.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with that, man. So, but
man, I'm excited. So the paint, is it really responsive? Like when you're doing lines and stuff, do you feel like you have control over like the thick and thin, like to the extent?
Well, having never really used paint, I don't know how to compare. I mean, because I was never a painter until I got this thing.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, hey, I'm a painter, so I think it works fantastic. You know, you can make a real small brush and just reach over there and make it big, and you can, you know, change the opacity of it, or you can push hard and push soft. Yeah, I mean, it's bananas.
And then with the lines, like, you know, the pen you were holding up kind of at the beginning, that you were saying, like, Lonnie, I'm not going to use it till it works like
yeah.
Do you have kind of control over it like you would if you were drawing with that pen? Like where, you know, if you release like the pressure on it, it's
and there's different settings, you know, like I said, like the studio pen, for example, it smooths your line out, you know. There's a setting on there. I don't know. I can show you guys.
There's all kinds of. I need one thing that I'm planning on doing is creating, trying to reduplicate the brushes that I have in the Comic Maker Studio kit,
right.
Comic Maker toolkit for Procreate and also for Affinity. So, but the program will all work differently. But just in what little playing around I have done with brushes in Procreate is. There's just a lot of different options. And it's basically just a lot of sliders and things that you can kind of adjust to get the pen where you want it, to do different things. And there's tons of different functions. So, I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless with all the different brushes and things you can create. So like I was mentioning before, where the brushes right out the box that I've used in Procreate, I'm not crazy about them compared to Clip Studio. There was I forgot who mentioned it, but in the chat, someone was talking about the G Pen in Clip Studio, and that's like my favorite. The G Pen is just right out the box. It's just like perfect. So, but I know there's a way to recreate that, and there's got to be a way to recreate that same brush with that same feel in Procreate. So, I have to do a little playing around, but yeah.
I just have to try any of these programs but it is one of those things of like, I do think it might be something I should learn, because I do feel like a bit of a dinosaur in the sense of like, if I'm going to work digitally and draw digitally, I'm doing it in Photoshop or Illustrator or you know, traditionally. And it reminds me of like when I was hesitant to do stuff in Photoshop years ago, and then like that, you know, of course, eventually you get Photoshop, you get the hang of it, and you're like, oh, why didn't I do this? I know I'm probably that guy now.
Well, I don't know about that though, Josh, because like I've talked to Jim Lujan about this quite a bit. Like, for example, I think we were teasing Jim about using like you know, flash flat, like from 1997 or something like that, right? To animate his cartoons. But I mean, at some point, why upgrade for the software? I don't see any reason to upgrade for the software.
Yeah.
You know, I think if it makes your if it increases your speed or something like that, you know, like the process or just practicality of not having to have a bunch of paper around if that's what you want.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, I think those are good gains that you can get. But if you're just going to go from one program to a different one because everybody's using it, I don't know about that. You know, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what your goals are, I think. But I think we're all just trying to be better artists, you know, like what I've talked about with Jim. He's like, maybe, you know, I need to upgrade to the Adobe suite that's on the Creative Cloud now, you know, and we talked about that. And it's like, well, then you got to learn, you know, whatever Flash is called now. I think it's called Adobe Animate.
Yeah.
We tried that out, and it was like, oh man, there's quite a learning curve here, you know, right? And so, and what are we going to get out of it? You know, he's kind of got his animating process down, you know. So now it's just about making better, you know, better art, better movies, better storytelling, those kind of things. Whereas, you know, just to upgrade your software just because to keep up, that's a losing battle, I think.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's, you know.
Yeah, just for me, I always like fear those guys. Like when I first kind of started getting into like in-house work, I remember a lot of dudes that I met who were Quark experts.
And, I think I remember that.
Without a lot of skill outside of Quark. Like Quark was their thing, and then Quark got killed, and they all lost their jobs.
No.
I remember thinking, okay, note to self, like not that I need to like constantly stay up with software, but one thing I was like, okay, I got to make sure I have my foundations down, right? Because that never changes.
Right.
The other is like never like marry a program because
now that's what I was talking about. What's your goal though, right?
Yeah.
If you're you know, you're talking about being, you know, as far as you know, marketable in your skills, keeping up. Yeah, then I think definitely, you know, try different things, you know. That's why I have like, you know, I got an Apple computer and an Apple iPad and I got an Android phone, you know, just to kind of keep things, you know, I got a Windows laptop just to keep.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've got an iPad and an iPhone, but I've got a PC, desktop.
Yeah, you know, it's good to keep.
When I was doing that demo,
I feel my hand is burning if I touch a PC. I'm like, I just can't. I can't.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I was doing that demo, and they were asking me to do something with the shortcut, and they were telling me the shortcut for a Mac, and I'm like, I'm not on a Mac. And then the chat went like nuts. On a Mac?
Though I'm kind of surprised it still happened because I am noticing a transition.
The software is all the same. Right. If you're in Photoshop, it doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or PC. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, come on. And here's the kicker here. Sorry, but the fact here's why I know it doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or a PC, because no one could tell through that whole demo that I was on a PC until I mentioned I was on a PC.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with people having their preferences, but it just depends on what your goals are. You know, I think what you're talking about, Josh, though, is definitely it's good to try things out. And there's a lot of people that like Procreate. I think, you know, a lot of great artists that I love to watch.
The price point. I mean, of course, the iPad is expensive to begin with, but if you have the iPad,
right?
I mean, $10 for a program that's it's so popular right now. I mean, just the amount of you know.
So you could get an iPad and that program for the cost that Adobe Creative Suite will cost you in about a year. So it's, you know, that's a pretty appealing cost. Like you could actually get the iPad Pro and that program for about the same rate you'd spend in a year on Creative.
Yeah, I think so.
That's not a bad prospect there, you know, in saving. If that's gonna.
I mean, you're not getting the suite, the Adobe
Yeah.
suite.
Right. But there is the Affinity option. I think the Affinity mobile software, and they've got, designers like Illustrator. It's a vector program, and then their Affinity Photo is like Photoshop, and those are, I think, $25, a little more than Procreate, but still,
Right. Well, and from what I understand, I don't think Creative Cloud works on my iPad, but I think you can use Creative Cloud now on the iPad.
They're definitely. I know they're working on a
Pro.
full version of Photoshop for the iPad.
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to.
I think it's available now.
Is it available?
Yeah, I think you can use the whole Creative Cloud.
Yeah, because at Adobe Max, they were talking about having, like, I think Illustrator and Photoshop on it, and then I never followed up to kind of find out if that actually happened. But I've also heard, I do think someone I knew had used the Photoshop on there and said it was like still limited. It wasn't like the full program. But I don't know. Maybe that was a while ago, so I don't know.
So there's a comment from Victor. Says DC artist Clayton Henry uses Procreate to finish his for his Flash series. So Victor, do you know? Does he have videos on that? Because I know it sounded like even Paul had some questions about certain things doing comics and Procreate, certain tasks he wanted to do. So I'm just wondering if he might have any videos on that we could check out to kind of learn their process. Have you looked online to see other comic book artists using Procreate and
a little bit. I haven't looked too hard on that.
Okay. I'm sure that information's got to be out there for whatever whatever you're having trouble figuring out how to do. I'm sure that information's out there.
But it's like I like Photoshop, and don't get me wrong, so I was just like, after a while I was like, screw this. I'm just going to take it into Photoshop and do what I know how to do, and be done with it. But I think the point is, I just figured out that you can see the live comments here. So I just read, is it Frank Salazar?
Yeah.
Jim Lujan is the king of using what you got. And I believe in that, that's, yep. So, use what you got. So if you got pencils and paper and inks and markers and stuff, go for it.
Yeah,
man, I feel super lucky that I have this iPad, and I love it, man. It's so much fun, and and just the productivity is way up.
That's awesome. So are you doing this entire like comic that you're working on now? Like, did you start it in Procreate, or is it something you transition to, or
no? This one, I just started it in a couple weeks ago, and so it'll be a 24-page. This is a 24-page comic, and I started it. Like I said, I outlined it on a page in Procreate. Mm-hmm. I think it would now be a good time to show you.
Yeah. You want to show us what you're working on?
Okay, so I'm gonna jump around.
A little setup to do. So he's gonna, while he does that, we'll just kind of keep it rolling. But so Josh, are you at all thinking about maybe getting an iPad at some point, or is it you still need some convincing? Or
I'm mixed on it. Like I kind of can see the appeal. I also just like, I'm mixed on it. Like, 'cause I don't actually do a ton of like cartooning on the go kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So, no, I get it. And you, and I would hate for you to move away from traditional, but you do. Don't you do your layouts and stuff digitally though?
Well, it depends. So like, there is half of my comic that I do pencil in Photoshop.
Right. Okay.
And so it's like I could actually see the advantage of it, and I also like having seen other cartoonists kind of working on the iPad Pro. It does seem like the Apple Pencil there's something about it that I think is more responsive than like a Cintiq or a Wacom, in the sense of like the touch sensitivity and the feeling like drawing. And that to me is really appealing. Like if it feels more like drawing, the only catch is At my job, I switched from. I always forget which one's the screen one of the Wacom. Is it the Cintiq?
Yeah.
Okay. So I switched to a Cintiq at my work, and then I caught myself actually switching back to just a flat whack. Like I just turned off the screen setting.
Okay.
And just have gone back to using it as just a regular tablet and looking up because I've just gotten so accustomed to that.
Yeah.
So, but then again, that's also using the programs that are on like Photoshop and stuff like that. That I don't know if they're as drawing friendly as these programs. Like to me, even just seeing on Paul's screen like that just looks like a sketch. I mean, that's
what that is. So.
Are you ready? Let's go full screen on you then.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
I can,
all right.
Yeah, so these are just notes that I wrote. You know, it's a little bit blurry, but these are just notes that.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah. So that as far as the what did you call that? Because I think I have a version of that, like a template for something similar to that in the Comic Maker Starter Kit or Toolkit.
Yeah, you do. It's Freytag's pyramid.
Okay, Freytag.
Frey tag pyramid.
Okay, so, see, I've never heard that term either, but I have a similar plot structure.
Right.
Just
you know, it's so the story starts down here, and you know, I don't remember what they're all called, but here's you know, you get things happen, and here's the climax, and then the story concludes. So anyway, I kind of outline my story, and then I just go in and I drew some characters, like character designs, just to, you know, for reference. Like these are just real quick sketches of the main characters, and just, you know, so I know what I'm kind of gonna be going for, and then I'll just go into one of my pages here to sort of show you what I've been doing. Here's the one. Well, I don't know. Here we go. So, so these are the inks for this page, but I'll go here and show you how I started, which was, so here I got this from Scott.
Oh, cool.
Right, my frame.
So you just use the PNG and import that?
No, I just made this with the select tool, but I just use this on every page, the 9 triangle or the 9
panel grid
frames. Yeah, 9 panel grid. So then I pencil in. What is that? Oh, I accidentally brought that one in. So I pencil in, you know, the frames, and like I said, it's pretty rough, the pencils.
Mm-hmm.
I turn this off, and you can see my pencils. And actually, this is kind of a cool thing. I pencil in, and I use the pencil tool because I just like, you know, to think that I'm using a pencil. And it's blue, and I just pencil it in like so. And then I turn down the opacity when I'm ready to ink. You know?
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And then I ink. But before I start inking, I also do and I write it like this. I write the story like this. I do the word bubbles, the lettering, you know, what the people are going to say and stuff. So I don't type it out like the story, like, you know, frame 1, so-and-so says this, it says that. I just do the word bubbles right in here. So I go through every page and I do this. And then I come back, and then, like I said, I turn these bubbles off, or word bubbles off, change the opacity on this thing to this layer, turn it down, and then I do the inks. So
nice.
And then when I'm done inking it, I can turn the pencils off, and there we go. And these, when you asked about vectors, see if I can mess this thing up here real quick. I want to show you something real quick. So you can take a line and draw it like this, hold it, and it straightens it like that. Boom. So, right. So that's how I do the frames, the page frames.
Yeah.
So like in Clip Studio, you just make the frame, boom, and it's done. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Faster than what I do, but this works pretty good. You know, I can do it pretty fast.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty amazing for like, I can just instantly see how that would be convenient for doing.
here's another one too.
Can you set it, Paul? Can you set it so, like, if you want to draw a straight line where you can tap once and then just move over to the other corner and tap it again, and fill in the line? I think Autodesk Sketch does that.
Yeah, Autodesk Sketch, yes, but I haven't figured out how to do that here. No, I don't know how to do that. But this is how I've been able to do it. You know, like that. Hold it, boom.
Yeah. Well, that's just the same. Yeah.
Now check this out. I can do a same pen, but I just did it lighter.
Yeah.
But I made it thinner because
that's the pressure. You just utilize your pressure sensitivity for that. Okay.
Wow.
So now check this one out though. This one's pretty sweet.
So here's a question, Paul. So how do you make sure that
circle?
Yeah, that's
so
pretty
cool.
cool for word balloons. So how do you keep the consistency of your lines when you're doing your panels if it's all based on pressure sensitivity? Because how do you make sure you have the same amount of pressure to make sure your lines, your panel borders are all the same thickness?
Yeah, I like my panel borders to be a little varied.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. I try to get them, sometimes.
But is there a way to create a uniform thickness also that is not dependent on?
I think there are some, and that comes with the pen, So the pen settings, I think you can do that.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. That's so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, some cool stuff. And like I said, I'm not an expert and haven't, I couldn't tell you every feature or anything like that.
Those three you just showed are like not at all features I'm familiar with, like from Photoshop, so it's like that. That's pretty.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think in Photoshop, Photoshop's a bit clunky with the lines like that. It's like an vector object, or it's real clunky. I know you have to rasterize the line or something like that. I don't know, but I do that. And I use, if I'm just doing all this on my computer, I just use Illustrator to do the frames and the bubbles and stuff.
That's what I use Illustrator to do all my word balloons and everything too. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I'll do for this here too. Is I'll do the word balloons and the lettering in Illustrator. So,
which all good designers should be doing, type in
Illustrator.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that pretty much covers, what I'm using the iPad for.
Wow.
To do my, it's the pencils, and then this is great. You mess it all up.
Thumbnails then on the iPad too. Paul?
Yeah, like I said, yep. All my thumbnails are right there. My pencils are really rough because I'm inking it, right? So.
Now, did you say you started this comic like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So how many pages was that you have?
24, but like I said, 24. But like I said, my pencils are really rough,
Yeah, that's pretty impressive though, to have that much worked out.
Oh,
very cool.
What is this? Oh,
is that a reference? Like a
yeah.
You drop reference photos in there, and
yeah. Somebody said. Somebody commented on, man, how you draw that crowd of. Somebody said, how do you draw that crowd of people so well? On a drawing that I did, and let me bring that drawing up. So, here's another thing. I'm just an unorganized mess. So these are some, just one piece, just drawings or paintings that I've done, but I keep my comic in a stack. So that it's all together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's right here, as opposed to just the other drawings. But that one drawing was, there was a crowd, and somebody said, man, it's so hard to draw a crowd, Oh, here it is. Oh, because the drawing that you posted. So I'm like, well, I know how to cheat, and I took, that's so there's a reference photo underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't trace every person exactly, but I traced a few people enough to make it look like I drew it. So I don't know if that's cheating or what, but
Yeah.
it's what I did. I'll admit it.
I do that with cars all the time, just
But
because
that's another.
I can draw a car if I painstakingly, go in and draw all the grid and everything like that. Sometimes it's easier just to trace it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like drawing people and faces, but yeah, stuff like cars and anything, buildings and stuff like that. Why not trace it?
Yeah.
So
that's pretty darn impressive, though, man. That's a lot of pages for 2 weeks. Very impressive.
It may have been, it's probably a little bit longer than that. But I don't know. It could be a couple weeks. Time has things have blurred lately.
Yeah, everything going on in the world right now, I think time has become very confusing.
For sure.
Man, so okay, so what is this comic that you're working on? Do you want to talk about that at all? Like what?
Sure, yeah, that'd be fun.
Like a total 70s vibe, like in a good way, from what I've seen. So,
well, this fist here is actually a statue in downtown Detroit.
Nice.
Of Joe Louis. Lewis's fist. So this particular story is set in Detroit. Let me come back to you guys on the screen, I guess, if you don't mind.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Come back like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find, put some time aside, dive a little deeper into this with stuff. Or at least the brushes I like.
I like Philip's statement. If reference is cheating, I've been doing it wrong for 30 years.
Yeah, me too.
But so this comic is set in Detroit. It's actually in the future, not in the 70s. So, there's all the cybernetics have kind of gone taken over, and there's cyborgs that people are. So at first it starts off with, we've got like fake joints, we got fake eye lenses. We're already sort of going down that road. Your phone is kind of
implanted.
So all you got to do is just implant that phone in your body. So anyway, this story involves a lot of cyborgs, but to counter that, there's ancient all human orders like the samurai have reemerged in order to battle the evil cyborgs. And so there's the main character is Samurai Tai. And that's the name of the comic. So it's just Samurai Tai. So, thanks, Keeman Moni Arts. That was very kind. But that's the story. That's the main character, and the story is basically samurais fighting cyborgs.
Oh, sweet! That sounds fun as hell to draw too.
Yeah, and this particular story is set in Detroit, but in the future,
I love it.
New Detroit, like RoboCop.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. So everything's that's another. I don't know if that's cheating, but that's what I've done.
I don't think RoboCop has the trademark on using a future Detroit city.
Right.
I think Detroit's one of those. It's a big enough city, used enough, and
it probably hasn't been done as much as like New York, California, as far as future movies. But yeah, it's up there.
Well, the thing about this, I want to do other stories, and Samurai Tai will go to Houston, or he'll go to New York, or he'll go. He wants to just travel the earth and get in adventures. So that's the idea behind it. But
Sounds super fun, man.
But yeah, the 24 pages is a lot of work when you do the pencils, the ink, and the.
Yeah.
For me, the story is actually the hardest part. The writing. I say I started on it 2 weeks ago, but writing the story, like figuring it out in my head, that took probably a couple years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have like Jim. I don't know how you guys are, but like Jim Luhan's got like 50 different short films with all these great characters and stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got this story, and been sort of sitting in the can for years. I'd love to do the thing on this, but man, I'm like, I don't have that in me. I just got one here. I got to wait for the inspiration or whatever." So,
Yeah.
I have to fight that stuff out because I get these ideas pop into my head. I'm like, I can't do that right now. I got to finish my other thing, and then maybe I can get to it. So
do you write them down? And
yeah, I mean,
do you forget them?
Certain things more. I mean, the stories. I mean, I might write just the concept down, but I won't go any further than that, just because it'll take me away from what I'm doing now. But I have like a Trello board with a list of like everything from gag ideas for like t-shirt designs, which I'm not really doing too many of right now, but I've just got all kinds of different ideas and stuff like that, or video ideas. And, anytime I come up with some kind of idea, I usually log it in Trello.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I have quite a few brewing. And so it's like, I definitely, it takes a lot of self-discipline for me to stay on one idea, even though I will stick with an idea for like years. But it's like, in the meantime, I'm also discouraging all these little tangents in my head that are like, but neutrinos are cool. I should do a story about neutrinos. But what's funny is now that I'm like my lit agent's like pitching this book I've been working on forever, and there's been a little bit of feedback that's like, because what I'm pitching is really hard to sell, because it's like memoir, and then it's got like religious element to it, but it's not religious enough to appeal to religious publishers, and it's not secular enough to appeal to secular publishers. So it's in this weird little crazy niche that's hard to pitch. But I've gotten the feedback from a bunch of fairly large publishers, like editors, like, what else do you have? Like, we love the style of writing and the art, and this theme is not going to fit. It's too whatever. And I've realized, like, I've built up like quite a few of those responses, and I'm like, I need a bunch of pitches, like little pitches of ideas to kind of, because little cracks.
I've heard that. Yeah, you got to have your elevator pitch, and then you got to have like 3 or 4 in the ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually what I've been talking about this week on making comics. So yeah, 101 elevator pitches and. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But I'm going to be building some of those this weekend, just like side projects I wouldn't mind working on outside of my main one. And it is interesting to have to go back because there's so many ideas that have been like, no, stay focused. And then just asking that question, like, what else would you want to work on? I relate to what you're talking about, Paul, where it's like, I'm not Jim, because Jim, the second that window would open, would be like, well, I have this, like, he'd have 10 instantly.
Oh, he'll just think of them, right? Like, as you're talking, I'm telling him about something, and he's like, oh, that'd be great, and he makes up a character while we're talking,
Yeah.
So, but
that rapid fire creativity is.
Yeah, I'd love to I'd like not to segue too much, but I would love to just kind of tap into Jim's brain, or just like watch his, because I don't know if he ever really shares his process too much. So I'd love to kind of see how all that stuff comes together. Maybe he'll do that. Probably we'll do more of that on the show he's doing with Corey, I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think that would be a bad idea, though. We should bug Jim again and say, get him on and say, just talk.
Yeah. And the thing about Jim, though, is he does music. He writes music. He writes songs. He does voices. And he's funny as just in, just talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We had him. We were just. It was so funny to me because his his tech was screwing up, and he couldn't.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Actually, I think I joined you guys.
Yeah, you joined. Yeah, Scott, when you jumped in, Jim had given up, and which must have been torture, because I mean he's got one-liners, he can he's got all kinds of jokes, and he was just frustrated. So
yeah, I can imagine.
But anyway, so well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great. It was cool to kind of get a preview of the comic and just to kind of talk about this stuff, because I think, I think that's where the future's going. Obviously digital. I mean, most people a lot of artists are already doing that. I've got my toes in, but I haven't made the full leap into the pool yet. So.
Yeah, and I honestly, I know it's maybe for people with iPad Pros, like it's not mind blowing, but just the 4 things you showed me made me like, maybe I should invite them and get it, because I was just thinking about the time, like when I'm doing architectural stuff, like in backgrounds, I'm using like a rolling ruler that's like a map maker's ruler, and it's like,
those are awesome.
Like this.
Yeah.
And
it's like it's just one of those things of like, well, that would cut a lot of time. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know Autodesk Sketch actually has it's just like kind of a clear ruler that you just put it on and you just move it down your screen. And then you can just use it and draw your lines over it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you can find tutorials and stuff on Procreate. That there's tools that I haven't even scratched the surface with. But.
So that's cool. So when this comes out, the comic you were kind of showing us a teaser of, like, where will people be able to find that comic?
So Samurai Ty there's actually a guy. Is an actual person.
Nice.
His name is Tyrone Dickey, and so he sells these comic books, and you have to buy them from him.
Okay.
But I'll definitely forward that on to you guys when it comes out. But he's got an action figure. Samurai Ty.
I think I saw that on your Facebook page when I was looking for artwork for the thumbnail.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's a friend of mine. His name's Tyrone. I call him Ty, and so it's based on him. So it's kind of fun, to have my main character be an actual person.
That's so rad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a samurai for real, but anyway.
That's awesome.
So,
well, where can everybody find your work in general as well?
Yeah, paulpate.com. There you go. Yep. So,
awesome.
And I've got a couple of graphic novels, comics, short, one-off comics, and some animation, and I like to do portraits mainly, and caricatures and that kind of stuff. So you can find all that there.
Awesome, that's great. Cool. I always feel like, man, respect to anyone who completes a graphic novel. Really, like it's an undertaking. And then on top of that,
there's it's been a lifetime. So. Yeah, all artists are a bit off, aren't we?
Yeah, a little off. All right, so as I said at the top, like, you guys are on my channel, you know where to find me. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit like, go to joshmckimball.com to see illustrations, t-shirts, cartoons, all that fun stuff. quarterlystories.com for a little preview of my current graphic novel. And then, Scott, where can everybody go to pick up tools for their comics and especially for building heroes? Where could they go to?
Well, most of my tools are at circworks.com, except for the one that you just mentioned, because right now it's exclusive for, I think in another week or two it'll be on my website, but right now it's only available on designcuts.com. It's the Hero Design Studio, and it does have, like I mentioned before, it does have Procreate brushes, or basically stamps. The whole idea is that it's got like bodies and heads that you can use. If you're in Procreate, you just drop the body in, then you drop the head shapes, then you can drop eyes and everything and build your template. And then and it's all, you can set it all up in Blue Line or whatever you like to work with, and then you can go up, then create a separate layer, and then you can go over it and just use that as a template, and then and build your character based on that. And it's Procreate, it's got Photoshop, it's got Illustrator, it's got Affinity Designer and Clip Studio, and it's also has like the PNGs. So pretty much all the major programs it has it's compatible with. So
and
that's a Design Cuts. Or if you're watching this later on, it might be at CircWorks by then. I don't know.
And I've said this a few times recently to Scott. But Josh, I'll tell you, I started watching when I started this project of mine. I think before I met, it was way before I met Scott. I started watching Scott's series of Making Comics 101.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
That's
at YouTube.
On YouTube, as a refresher to, kind of get started and well, a lot of the, when I did my graphic novel years ago, it was, a lot of things I didn't even know that Scott talked about.
That's awesome.
So it was tremendous help. I mean, for me, it was great. And the series, in his presentation, he's a great teacher, and presentation of it is fun and really engaging. So I'd recommend it for anybody that is, if anybody's watching that thinks, I'd love to do comics, just take a few minutes. These are real short episodes, but they're worthwhile. They're jam-packed with fun, real useful information that I think, I wish I would have known this stuff when I spent, 2.5 years on a 250-page graphic novel, right? And oh shit, I should have done this way, for all those pages. But the great one is 22 panels that work.
Oh yeah, well, I can't take too much credit for that, because that's
right. No, but you presented it, and it's perfect for that for that series of Making Comics 101. It's just something everybody needs to know.
Yeah, and I'll second that too, because a lot of the comics and cartooning I had to learn was like the hard way, and kind of just figuring out things through trial and error, or like bumping into a cartoonist here or there would give like little nuggets. And the cool thing about it is it's all condensed.
Right.
Really well done series. So yeah, Scott is not park with that. So check it out, you guys. Yeah. All right, Scott, where can everybody find Artcasters? How can they keep track of this thing? Because it's on my channel today. It's next week it's on your channel. Sometimes it's floating around in the ether. How do you keep track of this thing?
It kind of bounces around, but if you want to know exactly when we're going to be going live, whose channel we're going to be on, what time we're going to be on at, the easiest way to do that is to join our mailing list for the Artcasters, and we don't spam you or anything like that. Usually about 30 minutes ahead of time, we just send out a newsletter with a link to where you can click on us, because YouTube doesn't always notify people. So it's just a real easy way. So just join the Artcasters newsletter. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but there is a link in the description of this video for that.
Nice. And I just wanted to point this out because it's hilarious. Oh, wait, not that one.
I saw Jan was in the chat. He's just popping in real quick. I haven't talked to Jan in a while, so.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what the schedule's like. We might have to get him on the show if it works with his, because he's, I don't know.
I didn't choose the comic life.
I like
me.
Yeah, so
for sure.
All right, guys. Well,
it's a sickness, Frank. It's a sickness.
I got a T-shirt that says, "I didn't choose Nerd Life. Nerd Life chose me."
yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. I always feel like it's the best thing in the world, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just talking a really bad drug habit. So all right, well, thank you guys. Thanks everybody who joined us in the chats. Thank you, Paul. It was really cool to see your process, to see that comic in progress, and like thanks for sharing your experience and stuff with Procreate. And we will see everybody in the chats and see all you guys next week around the same bat time and same bat channel.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. It was really fun. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
There's always a lag.